Like, who you marry is so incredibly important
A hundred
because that literally
percent.
becomes like your world. And you start to think like each other, you start to talk like each other, you start to want to do the same things that, each other are doing just by that connection, by being together all the time. Proximity is incredibly important. And so sometimes you might not even like a person or like what they're doing, but because you're around them so long, you start to do it, right? You start to look at it differently.
What if the key to your personal growth lies not just within you, but also in the company in which you keep? So today we're going to dive into the transformative power of building supportive circles with a renowned life coach, and I think overall amazing individual. We've known each other for some years now. Her name is Ava Laura, and today we're going to discover how intentional relationships can elevate your journey beyond 40. A little bit about her. She is an internationally acclaimed intuitive consultant and a transformative life coach with over 18 years of experience guiding high achieving leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives from a place of unfulfillment to one of strength and wholeness. So thank you so very much for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
So share a little bit about your experience with life coaching and how you've gotten to where you are today in your specific journey.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I'm a life coach, intuitive consultant, holistic mental health expert with a background in social work and mental health. So, this all kind of came about from my own personal journey of self-love and self-care and really trying to find my own self and my purpose and in my own fulfillment, right? And so I really work with individuals who were just like me, who were high achievers, who wanted to live in purpose and passion, who had reached the seemingly mountaintop and said, like, is this it? Like, there's got to be more to life. Like, this cannot be everything that I worked for. Something is meant. I care enough to figure out what that is and live in that life and that truth and really wanting to be in alignment with my purpose and leave a legacy. I mean, that's important to me.
That's wonderful because it's knowing what you may have been challenged with and wanting to impact others so that they're able to make it to the other side of it, I think is a great thing. And ultimately, we're all here to leave the world a little bit better than before and by the people we touch. And I think it's super important for us to be present to that, specifically at this cycle of our life. This podcast came about with being over 40 is that often they only talk about you hear all the negative connotations. Like, let's be honest, they'll say life is over and can't accomplish any, and so I'm like, so all I have to do is look forward to death. Okay. Got it. But I think it also comes down to our circle of influence that if they're in a space of the world is ending and thinking that there's nothing good on the other side of being at this age, there's can be wisdom. And that's why I thought it would be so awesome to have you as a speaker in this episode, because with you being a life coach, I think that you can really give a great perspective on people really understanding the importance of a supportive circle. So I would love for you to share in your perspective, how do you define a supportive circle and why is it crucial for personal growth, especially for women that are over the age of 40?
Yeah, I mean, a supportive circle is a circle, a network, a community of people who feed you and don't take away from you in its essence, right? Like, I could go into more, but it's really that. Like, I'm a firm believer in community. I'm a firm believer in sisterhood.
Yeah.
And I really feel like so many people haven't healed because they don't have a supportive community.
Yeah.
They don't get their needs met, and we can't do it alone, right? We're not supposed to do it alone. We're supposed to do it in community and family, right? And so if you don't have that, then a lot of times what happens is you can only meet but so many of your needs, and then there's so many gaps and things that are missing. And so we're still feeling incomplete because we're just not getting all of our needs met. And so when you're looking for a supportive community, you want people who lift you up, who when you're in their presence, you feel better, right? when you come around them, the energy, like it feels good. Like even if you don't have a name for it, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
feels good versus you're in their presence and you feel depleted.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? You feel like, oh my God, every time I'm around them, like I feel sick or,
Yeah.
I feel tired or, you know what? I really don't even want to be around this person. I only feel like I can be around them out of obligation, right? Because
Yeah.
I have to. So when those feelings and things start coming up, honor that. Or your intuition is like, something ain't right about this person. I don't know what it is, but something just don't feel right.
Yeah.
You honor those things. And so you look for that, especially now, like in your 40s. I think, in your 20s, you do a lot of things, right? You're learning through experience. So you do a lot of dumb stuff. And, you're in your 20s, you learn. But when you're in your 40s, you're kind of like, at this point, listen, I know what works for me and I know what doesn't work for me. And so now it more becomes about honoring what you know and not ignoring it, not seeing the red flags, but really just saying, having the courage to listen to it, honor it, and then live your life.
Yeah, and I think that there's this confidence that comes for us like at our 40s. Like you're just like, I don't subscribe to that. Like I feel like in our 20s we can almost be people pleasing and we're not even aware. Like there's this like you're discovering because honestly it's like you're out of college if you went to college, like your first time out of your parents' control. In the 30s, it's like sometimes that's when you're starting to get a little bit more clarity. And in the 40s, you're just like, yeah, I do not like I don't want anything to do with any of that. I love how you broke that down and why it is important. So one of the things I would love for you to share is like from your personal experience, where your support network played a pivotal part of your journey in your life because of the people that you decided to keep around you.
Oh my God, so many times, so many times. I told you I'm a huge proponent of sisterhood and community. And I've always been a girl's girl, always very supportive, always had a community of friends. Always the one organizing things, let's do brunch every month or let's do this. Or I just have my girl living your effing life brunch that I've been doing every year here in the DC area. Like I'm that woman, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But there's a few instances. One that was really pivotal, I would say, is when I was going through my divorce. It was one of those times, and I'm sure some of you who are watching can relate, is particularly if you've been married or you've been through that process, that like when you get married, especially when you've been married a long time, you tend to lose people in your life or you lose the closeness in those relationships because you formed a new relationship, right, with your spouse, and that becomes your primary relationship. So you're not always as close with your friends, not because you don't want to be, but just time. You know what I mean? Life. And this is the person that you're with. And one of the things that I realized when I was going through my divorce, or as that whole thing was unraveling, I was married for 12 years and I knew it was coming to an end. And I found myself like, wow, like I really need to reconnect with my community that over the last few years, right? I know I'm not as close with um because I haven't made them my priority, right? And I need that. And so I just remember like reconnecting with some of my girlfriends like that I went to school with. I went to Howard and still have my girlfriends, and they were there for me. I mean, allowed me to cry on their shoulder and, just talk it through and just have that good
Yeah.
girlfriend time. It was so imperative just to, have that support and have those safe spaces that I knew that I could go to when this phase of my life was literally falling apart.
And I think that's a key part to knowing that you have a great supportive circle, because if your circle can't acknowledge the different life seasons and not hold it against you, like I think that that is can resonate with a lot of women. It doesn't even have to be in divorce. It can be with parenting. Like I have a friend right now, she's in the thick of it with being a toddler mom. And so if I don't hear from her in a couple of weeks, I'm like, hey, just want to just check in. And then usually I get a photo of her son doing something. And she's like, I'm like, so you're just taking it day to day. But like, I feel like that is a part of knowing your supportive circle. Like, if they're the ones that even they can understand, like, you went through this challenge, but that doesn't mean that I don't value you. That doesn't mean that you're not
Exactly.
important. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to hold that against you. And I think having the right type of circle, they take you in with open arms, or it might even be an open conversation of saying, I know I could have possibly handled this a little bit better, but you're adult enough to have that uncomfortable conversation. I mean, is that something that you think is important to you when you're selecting or
Oh,
saying that someone is a part of that
absolutely.
circle?
Yeah, I mean, because we're human,
Yeah.
right? And we want people who are going to allow us to be human and, not be perfect. I mean, so many of us women, especially in our 40s, right? Especially those of us who struggle with perfectionism, right? We really feel like we always have to show up being this perfect individual. We hold ourselves to the standard, right? That is completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so we think that other people hold us to the same standard where really it's just us. And so you need to have a circle that grounds you and allows you to be yourself and says it's okay. And one of the things I love about my circle, and I'm the same way, I don't need to talk to you every day. In fact, I don't want to talk to you every day.
At all.
Right? Especially with the work that I do, right? Like I talk to people and deal with people every day. I'm in the thick of people's emotions and their healing process. I'm speaking in front of large crowds. It's a lot of energy. I don't want to talk to you every day.
At
So
all.
I like my friends who, listen, weeks could go by and you pick up the phone, hey girl, what's up? And it's no thing. It's not like, where you been? Or, how come I haven't spoken to you? It's all love. It's like we talked to each other just, yesterday,
Mhm.
and we understand that there's life challenges. I mean, I have friends right now who have children and who are now that sandwich generation right now,
Mhm.
also caretakers, dealing with their their parents and taking care of them. And so we have to be understanding and know that life does not stop for any of us.
Yeah.
We're all going through the thick of it, and just be there for each other, support each other however we show up.
And it's not anything personal. Like that's
Not
that's
personal.
the part too. And I love those friendships that because you don't want to talk to them all like we're not 15 anymore.
People know, don't call me. Text me. Don't call me.
But the best part is like
I'm
when
all about the text and the voice notes, okay? Text and
oh my
voice notes.
gosh.
That's it.
I think that that's the indicator of you being in your 40s. You're like, give me a voice note. Like, you already know, don't text me a paragraph dissertation. Just give me a voice note. I'll listen to it. You're going to get a better response than you writing me paragraphs on paragraphs of text. Just like, I don't care. Zone out. Send me 2 minutes of voice note. I don't care. But I feel like that is a part of understanding where we are in our life. But I would love for you to share is like, what are some, like with the clients you work with or just your experience over life? Like, what are some common challenges that women face when they're trying to cultivate or maintain supportive relationships in their midlife?
Yeah. I mean, so one of the things that I've seen, right? And I wrote this whole journal, Girl, Live Your Effing Life,
Hmm.
right? I don't know if I can curse on here.
I don't
And
care.
it's a self love journal because one of the things that I was seeing, right? Myself, my clients, my friends, is that we all still, as much as we talk about it, we all still struggle with self love and
Yeah.
worthiness, right? We'll say we want these things, but then there's still that little bit of us that still feels like, I don't know if I deserve it or if I'm worthy of it. Or if it doesn't work out right, well, see, I didn't deserve it anyway. Oh, see, that
Hmm.
was never going to happen for me anyway. And when you struggle with that, that shows up in your relationships, right? It shows up in who you attract. It shows up in who you nurture, and it shows up in who is attracted to you and feeding off of your energy. And so one of the things that I realize is that we might talk a good game. A lot of us, yeah, we're powerful and we're showing up powerfully in our careers and, our businesses, but not as necessarily as powerfully in our relationships.
Yeah.
Because you can be confident and bold in one area of your life and not be confident and bold in another area of your life.
Yeah.
And that's just part of being a human. We're multifaceted individuals. And so understanding that if your relationships is somewhere where you're not as confident, right? And yeah, that worthiness thing kind of creeps up from time to time. Then really working on boosting your self-love and your self-care, feeding yourself so that you will attract people who will continue to feed that and know that you are worthy and you are deserving and who will treat you accordingly. It starts with you first. But I'll share one more important thing because
Okay.
this particularly starts to come up, I think, like in our 30s and 40s. The other thing is that a lot of us are still holding on to these old relationships that occurred when we were, maybe in high school, maybe even further back than high school, some of us, right? Like if you're still in the same place where you were born and raised, it might be like in elementary school, middle school, high school, college. And these relationships no longer feed you, but you're emotionally invested because of the time.
Yeah.
Well, I've known this person for 20 years. I've known this person for 30 years. And so I can't just like get rid of them. I can't stop being friends with them because I've known them all this time. Even though it's toxic, it's dysfunctional, you don't even want to be around this person anymore. And so you're kind of there out of obligation. You know what I mean? Not because it's an actual, real, fulfilling relationship. I had this with a friend who I thought was one of my best friends and realized from some other things happening that she was actually really jealous of me.
Mm.
And I had to cut off that relationship. And it was like mourning, a part of me, like because she had been a part of my life for so long, but I had to realize she's not the person that I thought she was.
Yeah.
Am I really losing? It's already gone. It was
Yeah.
never there. You know what I mean? It was a mirage. And that's the thing that we have to have these tough conversations and these tough realizations with ourselves that everything isn't what it seems. And when you realize what's really going on, you have to then act. Because whatever happens after that point is on you. When you don't know, you don't know. But once you know better, now is your responsibility. What are you going to do about it? And I think in our 40s, we start to have those tough truths with ourselves. We start to see things a little differently and we have to act accordingly.
Exactly. And what I was going to chime in on was because you used the words attract, allow yourself to attract. So, what I hear is that one, being a certain way so you attract something new, but also knowing when it's time to let go of something that's old. And what happens is that we can sometimes carry that identity of who we used to be with specific groups and
Mhm.
sectors. And
Yep.
what prevents us from even attracting the new group and the new stage and the new space that we're walking into, or the space that we might be actually occupying. Because sometimes what happens is like people learn to mask. Like, yeah, there's going to be
Mhm.
different friend groups. I get that, but what happens is that some of the dreams, aspirations, goals we have, we start to mask it because we're trying to hold on to something that was
Mhm.
old and not realizing that I need to allow space to give the fruits of what has actually been put on my heart for who I should be. Is that the way people can see it?
Yeah, it's a lot of us one, in our 40s when we especially when we're doing the work, right? We're doing our healing work or have done some healing work.
Mhm.
We start to realize some truths about ourselves that aren't necessarily in alignment with what we thought and what necessarily other people think, right? And so your family and your old friends tend to hold you to who you thought you were or who you used to be and not where you're now going. And so it's hard for you to become this better version of yourself because you're still beholden to who they think you are.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's not even the mask, but it's the labels that or the limitations, the boxes that we've been put in. We've allowed other people to place us in, and then we've stayed there out of obligation, right? Out of
Yeah.
fear, out of all of these things. And in order to really get to that next level, you have to let that energy go. You have to let that obligation go and realize that you have to now be true to yourself and not true to the individuals who, oh, but that's just how you've always been. Well, maybe I used to be that way, but I'm not anymore.
Yeah. Yes. And that's not how I want to even show up for people. As perfect transition because I wanted for you to be able to share is like for someone that is in this space where they might be feeling like there are in this moment where they realize that how they've been is not conducive to where they want to go or who they actually are. How can someone
Mhm.
assess whether their current relationships and friendships are conducive to their growth and where they want to be?
Yeah. It takes a lot of inner work in terms of you have to look at like where you are in your life, right? And you have to kind of get real with yourself. You have to be very honest with yourself. Are you where you want to be right now? No shame, no judgment. This is a judgment-free zone. It's simply allowing us to face the truth. Where are you in your life, right? When I'm working with my clients, I take them through a couple different exercises that help with that. But one of them is really looking at all the different sections in your life. So, looking at your relationships, looking at your career, looking at your family, looking at your finances, looking at your spirituality, looking at your health, right? Looking at all the different aspects of your life and kind of measuring it on a scale of 1 to 10. Kind of like, where are you?
Yeah.
Where are you? What does that look like? And you look at where you are now and you look at where you want to be. Those are two very important aspects. And then you look at who in your life, I don't care if it's teachers, doctors, whatever, who in your life is supportive of where you want to be. Who in your life is playing a role in where you want to be? And who in your life is playing a role in invested in keeping you stuck? Because believe me, there are people who are invested in keeping you stuck because you fulfill a purpose for them and they don't want to let that go. So you have to be real with yourself and say, oh, you know what? I love my Aunt Sandra, but she only comes to me when she wants something.
Hmm. That's
All right. Versus, my girlfriend over here, Kim, anytime I need something or anytime something going on, I can contact her and she's there for me immediately.
yeah.
So you start to go through and you just do an assessment. You look at your life and then you look at all the people in your life and you group them. You literally group them and see what's going on. And that'll give you a sense of, okay, you know what? These people over here, I need to let go. Or at least at the very least, maybe they're family, right?
Yeah,
Some
you
of our
can't do
family we
anything
can't
about
let
that.
go of,
Yeah.
right? But we don't have to have close relationships with them. Like we get to define, we get to put boundaries around how we're going to deal with them. Right. And then who are the people that I want to be closer with? Right. In my self-love journal, we talk about one of the exercises around sisterhood, right? And looking at your relationships and analyzing that and seeing like where the gaps are, because it's not until you do this as you can really see the gaps. Like, okay, you know what? I don't really have any safe spaces, or I don't have any women that I can just call up, when I want to hang out or when I want to do lunch or go to dinner or something. Like all those relationships are gone,
Mm.
and so you can kind of see where that is. And then you can start to figure out, okay, how am I going to get those relationships now in my life?
I love you. That was so clear on how you are explaining that. And it gives people the space and freedom to actually even do that practice because I feel that that's where sometimes people can have this inner turmoil of like holding on to people because of one, not taking the time to even realize it, or even, yeah, like not even realize it. They might not understand that maybe that aunt that always shoots down the ideas and says that, oh, you're thinking too big, or like it's not even intentionally to crush your dreams. That might be because they stopped dreaming. But if you never take the time to even evaluate or take inventory of the individuals that are often in your ear, and understanding like if you're around individuals that one aren't doing the work, believe me, anything that happens in your life probably is not going to be given with a healed response or
Listen, they can only
advice.
give you what they have.
100%.
Like when you squeeze oranges, you get orange juice. They
Mhm.
only can give you what they got.
Yeah, and if you don't take time to even realize it, what happens is that you take on their identity without you even being present to it. So one of the things that I know that some people may hear, like, okay, I'm going to do these things to take an inventory and figure out like where these relationships lie. But how in practice can I start to set boundaries to protect my energy and well-being to actually allow for the space for attracting the people I really want to have access to my time?
Yeah. Let me tell you something. Boundaries is huge.
Mhm.
Huge. Like as long as you are in relationship with humans, you need boundaries. It is an everyday practice. Every day.
Yeah.
It does not end. And so, really, like when I'm working with clients, I give a very thorough, and I mean thorough definition. I have like a 5 week, it's not necessarily 5 week, I'll say 5 step, because it could be more than 5 weeks. A 5 week process, because it's going step by step into what boundaries look like. What are your emotional boundaries? What are your physical boundaries? How are they different? How do they show up? How do you identify them? How do you look at which ones you're violating yourself? Because it doesn't start with other people, it starts with you. We violate our physical and emotional boundaries all the time. What does that look like? How is that showing up in your life? Then we start to look at how other people are doing it, right? Because they're just mirrors for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think it's important because like my sister recently had a conversation with me because I have like do not disturbs on my phone and things like that. And she was trying to get me because it's 7 p.m. My phone goes into do not disturb. And she's like, well, why is that? I'm like, because typically I'm trying to shut my body down. I want to be in bed by 9. I was like, so if someone's calling me about something important, like, that it's intentional activity for you to call through my phone twice, and it better be about something good. And even still, because you do that, I take my own decision if I want to answer that phone call. And she's like, why is that? I'm like, because I am giving all day long in work. And if I cannot end my day with refilling my cup and starting my day in those methods, then I really am not going to be a pleasure. And the whole time I'm going to be resentful that I allow for you to have that. And she's like, really? She was like surprised about that
She said,
answer.
I will not be a pleasure. Okay.
And she's like, what? I
I
was like,
love that
yes.
self realization. Oh, I love it.
But it's like you have to like no, like if I can't be in someone's space and not be resentful or thinking about the other things I could be
Yeah.
doing, then it doesn't really serve me to do it. I'm like, so that doesn't mean if I don't answer the phone that I'm not telling you to never call me. It just means at this specific moment, I am not in the space to be present in that conversation. And after I explained it to her, she's like, well, that makes sense. She's like, I was like, so it is what it is. And I think with us, with boundaries and energy, we have to know, like, if I had a low energy day, I don't want to dump on her. I don't want to dump on
Right.
whomever it is. So it's one to protect my energy, but also to protect other people when I'm not necessarily in the space to show up powerfully for them or to give them the energy that I'm not spending the whole conversation dumping on them. It's okay to dump if someone you want to check to say, hey, I had a rough day. Can I talk to you about these things? But I don't want it to be that every time I'm interacting with someone that it's just me, dumping on them because that can impact how they see me and those relationships.
Exactly.
And you don't want it to be that when you have this circle that you're always taking from people, but you don't want it to be that you're always giving to people as well, because that can be equally as draining. So one of the things I would love for you to share, one, I know that you do Reiki and you also teach meditation. So how do these practices help with contributing to one's ability to build and sustain supportive circles?
Yeah, I absolutely adore Reiki. I teach Reiki as well, and I have a retreat where I teach Reiki in Morocco, Marrakesh. At this
What?
Reiki in Morocco retreat at this beautiful healing and restoration center, Black owned, Black woman owned, amazing in Marrakesh. So this will be the second retreat, and it's just a whole vibe because you're learning Reiki like in Africa.
Yes.
Like it's a whole thing. But I love Reiki because it is so holistic. It is so versatile. It's like good for everything. I'm like, when in doubt, Reiki. Reiki, I found Reiki during my own self-care journey where I was really working on myself. And that's when I started to study it. And it kind of just took me down this rabbit hole of healing. And so I honor it because it was really kind of one of the first practices that allowed me to really understand my own energy and who I am and how I'm showing up and how to help myself to feel better. Right? Like I think sometimes it's like, oh, I'm in pain, but do you know what to do? Like, do you really know how to take care of yourself beyond like going to the doctor or, taking some meds or something? Like, do you know how to work with your own energy? Do you know how to be very in tune with your energy? Like you said, I'm having a low energy day, right? Do you know how to fill that energy up so that you can raise your energy? And so Reiki is a beautiful practice because it really allows you to show up very fully, and you don't have to go to anybody. Like, you can learn it for yourself, and so you can practice it for yourself. And it's funny how, like, a lot of the people that I work with are like mental health professionals who are adding it to their practices as well. I mean, other professionals, and a lot of times they like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it as a service, and then they realize, like, you know what, this is for me and my family. Like, I don't even want to do this for other people. I want this for me. I
Yeah.
want this for my kids.
Yeah.
And I do it like, the girls, oh, I have a headache. Okay, come here. Let's do some Reiki. Or,
Yeah.
or my back hurts, or, all these things. And so you just realize how instrumental it is, just like in everyday life,
Mhm.
because we're dealing with energy, right? And
Yes.
we're dealing with all these things that come up, and all these emotions, right? And all this turmoil. And it's also a really amazing practice in conjunction, with, traditional medicine, but also mental health as well, in terms of, we talk about like somatic healing and understanding that we internalize our emotions, they're in our bodies,
Mhm.
right? And that if you don't actually do something, you can talk about it through talk therapy, and you have coaching and all these things, but ultimately you need to get those emotions and those things up and out of your body.
Mhm.
And Reiki allows for that. It allows to remove those blockages. It allows you to receive that good energy to fill you up, to replace kind of what you were holding on to that you didn't even know about. Like,
Yeah.
that was there this whole time, and you didn't even know, that experience that you had when you were 3 years old, that you're still holding on to it in your body. And so, anytime something happens, your back hurts and you don't even know why.
Yeah.
So Reiki is just a beautiful practice for that. And meditation, it's really interesting, my journey, like with yoga and meditation, because I actually studied yoga in India.
Mm.
And that was like a whole journey, a whole amazing experience, being in India and really learning like the heart and the core and the truth of yoga and meditation and all the different facets of it. Because yoga is actually called the Eightfold Path. Like, there's actually eight pieces to it, and meditation is just one of them. And so a lot of people don't know that. So we're like practicing yoga, but we're really not. We're only practicing one aspect of yoga, and that's the physical, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Meditation is another part of it. And I think meditation is so powerful because it really allows you to self, assess.
Yeah.
It allows you to be still with yourself. It allows you to see the things that are right in front of you that you're not necessarily tapping into or tuning into, that are really important. Like, we're praying for all these things, we're asking for all of these things that is showing up. And because we don't actually take a moment to kind of just slow down and just be present in our lives, we don't even see it.
Mhm.
Other people might see it, but we don't. We're just going, 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 going. And so meditation allows you just to breathe, slow down, be present with yourself, be present in your life, be present with the people that you care about, your family and your friends,
Yeah.
and just notice what comes up, so that whatever happens, you can actually address it accordingly because you're present for it. And you're not just so busy, so frantic, so angry, so depressed, so anxious that you don't even see what's happening around you.
And I think the great thing too, and you can even dive into this a little bit more, is because some people might be like, why is self-care even linked to our circle? And from the novice understanding of my own is like, you are the core to it, and not from a selfish place, because when you are more grounded in your beliefs, the how you show up in the world, that allows for you to align better with those that are in your circle, or understanding if the people you're aligned to are even in alignment with your own intentions. So is that the best way for people to see why it's important to work on self, to have an outward reflection of the company in which we're keeping?
Yeah, it's I think self-care is so multifaceted as well. It's
Mhm.
kind of like yoga, like I was just talking about. Like, when we talk about something, we kind of synthesize it down because it makes it, I don't want to say tangible, but it just, it's like anytime something blows up and it becomes mainstream, you kind of lose the essence of it.
Yeah.
Right. And you only kind of get this one part of it. So, like with yoga, for example, even though I said there's literally eight parts of it, the only thing that we focus on is the physical, is the actual asanas, as they're called, the physical movements. That's it. You don't really hear people talking about the breath work, the meditation, the cleansing, the diet, like all the other stuff that go along with it.
Yeah.
All we're really focusing on is the physical. And I feel like self-care is similar to that. Like self-care has kind of been like reduced to, you just need to do what feels good. You need to take care of yourself because whatever, like, you won't get sick or, whatever it is, where it's so much more than that. It's like, if you can't feel good in your own skin and feel powerful and feel confident, how are you going to be that for anybody? How are you going to fully show up? Like, if you are giving your family, who you say that you love, your fumes, right? Like your last little bit of energy, how are you really showing up for them? Like, and I still do a lot of self-care talks, but like particularly during COVID, it was, oh my gosh,
Really
it was like I
bad.
was
Yeah.
doing self-care presentations for like major corporations.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things that I always talked about, and I love my mom, so mom, if you see this, but I remember, black, you're black, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But you ever remember your mama talking about, oh, you getting on my last nerve?
Yes.
You know, and you think about it, like when you grow up, like how the hell did I get on her last nerve? How did that even happen?
Yeah.
And so now looking at it from my adult self, I'm like, how did you even allow that to happen? Because that's not my fault. Right? Like if you're taking care of yourself, I can't get on your last nerve.
Yeah.
There is more there. So whatever happens, you have that buffer to deal with whatever these kids throw your way, and they will throw everything your way.
100%. It's
Okay, kids will test you more than a little bit.
yeah. Like right now,
So
go ahead. No.
no, go
I was
ahead.
going to share because, like, right now, every month or every other month, I go and babysit my three little cousins. Now they're 3, 7, and 10. So I've been through potty training and in the beginning stages of puberty. And it's been the thick of it. And so, like, they will test like, I was just going to say, like, yeah, they will test. And the thing is like being able to know, like, oh my goodness, I don't want to respond a certain way because of me not putting in those boundaries. And that is like ultimately why I think what you're saying is so spot on is like you have to do inventory check because no one deserves to get the residual or the backlash from something else that we never even did. Like it's not their responsibility. It's for us to be able to regulate. So I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was like, yeah, like that literally happens to people.
Yeah, I mean it happens every day, and it's so normal that we just don't even really like think about it, right? Because it just becomes a part of the norm.
Yeah.
Um, I remember like I can't even remember. I think it was abnormal psychology, like back in undergrad, and we talked about it. Like it's that constant thing of like you have a bad day at work, like your boss, um, reprimands you. You get home, you kick the dog, you yell at your kids, like and they're like this whole residual on the way. You got road rage. You're yelling at the cars, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's literally what happens. So if you want to know why self-care is important, that's why it's important.
Yes.
That's why it's important.
Yeah, and self-care and then just taking the time for self-discovery, just so that you're understanding like how you're showing up in your circle and your circle can be your friend circle, it can be your family circle as well. And so I would love for you to share what are some initial steps would you recommend to begin building a nurturing community for someone that is currently feeling isolated or disconnected from their circle?
Yeah, it's sort of the blessing and curse, right? Like right now we have technology.
Mhm.
And so it's a blessing because it gives you tools that makes it much easier to, do certain things. It's a curse in a sense because it's almost like you kind of feel like you're connecting to people, but you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like if I'm IG or I don't know, TikTok or whatever, and I see my friends, like I feel like I'm connecting with them, but I'm not really connecting with them. Like
Yeah.
I'm just seeing them.
Yeah.
But one thing that I do like, and particularly, Facebook, and then there's other platforms, I love groups. Some of them suck. Like some of them is whole lot of craziness going on.
Yeah.
They're extremely toxic. But there's also like some really like nurturing groups as well. And I like groups around things that you love. Like I am an audiobook fiend, right? Like I am listening to audiobooks like every day. I still read books. I love to read, but I love me some audiobooks. So I'm in like all the reading groups, like the Black girl reading groups, the Black girl audiobooks or whatever. And when you're in these groups connecting, you start to make friends. Like you start to actually have genuine connections with people that you may have, never met. They may be in, different cities, states, whatever. And I always say you make those connections and take those connections offline.
Mm-hmm.
So, talk to them on the phone, talk to them over Zoom. If they happen to be in the same place as you, go out to lunch, go out to coffee, tea, whatever. Make those connections. I know a lot of people say, oh my God, it's so hard, to make friends like in our fees, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Like if you are nurturing yourself, right? If you are practicing self care, the spaces where you're practicing that self care can be the same places where you actually meet your friend, you make these other friendships. And so I have found that to be like a really valuable tool. Like use technology, use the things that you engage in every day, but take it a step further. Like don't just stay on the periphery. Like I talked to this woman, I think yesterday we had a meeting. She invited me to speak at some events and she's like, girl, yeah, I've been stalking you from afar for years. And I get this all the time. Talk to me.
Yeah.
Hit me up in the DMs. You know what I mean? Like, why did we just stop talking to people? My partner is, oh my God, he is like the most extroverted extrovert. I thought I was an extrovert until I met him. But he's actually one like you go out and about and he actually talks to people. Like, who does that? But he actually starts conversations. And it's amazing the people that you meet, like when you actually talk to folks. We'll be in the grocery store and he'll just start talking to folks. And I'm like, wow, that was a really cool person.
Yeah.
We would have never talked to them otherwise. You just go on about your business and you would have never met.
I love the tip though about the groups because I think like it can be like just like how it's so simple. Like if you like audiobooks, find groups. And here's the thing, if you go into one toxic one, there's plenty of more. Like find
There's
them.
plenty more.
Don't think that I have to. And then you go back to the old group. I think that that is so tangible for people that might not just walk up to strangers and start having conversations, but find some really great groups. And you never know. Like one of my really good friends, we did a challenge during the pandemic. In some kind of way, we connected inside the group and then we like, here we are like 4 years now, a whole panorama later. And we're like, we need to just go on a trip. Like, but the thing is that if you don't allow allowing the space is key. So you want to be able to allow the space for the potential new friendships and the new circles to create. So I would love for you to share as we start to wrap this up, how does having a supportive circle impacts one's ability to pursue their passion and purpose?
Love that. They say like attracts like, obviously.
Yes.
Birds of a feather flock together. All those good things. And there's truth to that, right? Like if you're hanging around people who are living their best life, guess who else is going to start living their best life too? Even if you're not currently doing it, you're going to start to look and assess things differently.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to think about things differently. You're going to start to show up differently just by who you're around. That's why it's so important. Like I know people, we talk about it, but we don't really talk about it. Like who you marry is so incredibly important
What?
because that literally
100%.
becomes like your world. And you start to think like each other. You start to talk like each other. You start to want to do the same things that, each other are doing just by that connection, by being together all the time. Proximity is incredibly important. And so sometimes you might not even like a person or like what they're doing, but because you're around them so long, you start to do it. Right? You start to look at it differently. Like, have you ever been in a red car? Right? The radio comes on. I hate this song. But you keep hearing the song, and next thing you know, you're singing it, and you're like, oh my God, why am I singing this song? I hate it.
Exactly.
It's the same thing with people. Like
Yeah.
that energy, they rub off on you. So you might find yourself doing things that you don't even like or you thought you didn't like, right? Or you start doing things that you actually, oh, I never did this before, but I love it just based off of who you're hanging around.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And I love what you said about the marry. Like, there's who you date and who you marry is so important. And I feel that we aren't always present to that. Like, I know even for myself, I don't think I'm pick. I don't want to say I have standards, yes. But like if someone is some like an individual that's like, oh, I don't like trying new things, I am out. Like even if and I look at even when it comes to food, because I'm like, that is the most micro level of openness. I'm like, that is the micro level.
Yeah.
And if every time we're going to eat out, all you do is chicken tenders and French fries, me sitting here saying I want to go to Lisbon, me saying that I have family that's in Africa and I'm going there, or like I'm going to have to, and it's everyone's different. I don't want to be that in the relationship. Like, I want to sprinkle my value. However, I don't want it to be that I'm the one that's having to lead in that capacity because I want someone that I'm equally partnered with curiosity. So, like, one of the values in my circle is individuals that are continuous learners. We don't have to be learning the same thing, but I need it to be that you're learning
Mhm.
something. Like, because what
Mhm.
are we going to talk about? Like
Mhm.
I easily check out of
And you get to
conversations.
share that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to learn the same things because you can share what you're learning. So now I know it. I can
Mhm.
share what I'm learning and now you know it. And that's what it's about. That's the growth.
100%, 100%. So for as we wrap up, what's a final advice that you would like to share with listeners aiming to build or enhance their circle for personal growth?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the first thing is if you're watching this, you're listening to this, really take in what you've heard and what resonates with you. Part of the problem that I see in particular is that we have become consumers of everything, consumers of food, consumers of social media, consumers of anything that we like, consumers of sex, consumers of money, consumers of everything, right? And what ends up happening is we consume, but we don't actually take it in and internalize it,
Yes.
right? So if something like really resonated with you, lean into that, right? Discover more about that. Really do the work around it and not just take in the information, but actually start to embody it. And so it's a lot of times we don't need more information. We really just need to practice the
Yes.
things that we're actually learning. So
Yes.
practice it. I mean, and that's really that was one of the main reasons that I created my journal, Girl Live Your Effing Life, because it's like, look, we got to actually do something. I want you to put into practice what you're doing, not just taking the information. I was like, I don't want to write a book where you just read it and you're like, oh wow, that's cool, but then you don't take it to that next level where you're really embodying it.
Yeah.
Like, I want to give you some exercises now where it's like, okay, now you see this concept, you get it. Now, how can you actually do it for you? How can you actually lean into this, right? And discover it for yourself and see how it feels for you. So, we need to really become more experiential where we're taking things in and then we're actually practicing it and doing something with it. And even if you decide you don't like it, at least you know because you took it to that next level where you actually started to embody that information versus just kind of taking it in and saying, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds dope. Yeah, the other day I heard this podcast and this was cool, but then you don't do anything with it.
I love it. I agree wholeheartedly. So share with people how they can connect with you and also learning about your book and any of the courses that you have.
Absolutely. I am Googleicious all over the internet, avalaura.com, AVALAURA.com. I'm all over social media, so you can find me on TikTok, IG, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm probably missing some stuff, but I'm there too. And really my website is my hub, so everything is on there, but I'm very active on social media as well. So get in there, DM me, say, "Hey, I heard you on the podcast." Shout me out. Also, too, I want to give you all a link. I can give you the link, but I have a self-love, not self-love, a self-care audit, which allows you to kind of look at different aspects of your life and to see, like, how am I practicing self-care in this area? How is this working for me? What are some things that I can do differently? What are some things that I'm doing well? So I'll give you the link for that so you can kind of take that and that'll kind of start your journey and say, okay, listen, this is where I want to focus. Okay, she mentioned a journal, let me get that, or mentioned the Reiki retreat, let me do that, or just kind of get in where you fit in, like whatever resonates with you.
And I'll make sure to have all of the links in the show notes as well as in the caption for those of you that are watching this video. So I truly, truly appreciate everything that you've shared today. You've given us some profound insights on the importance of building circles and truly having the support for the growth in which we're needing and desiring, and the importance of actually doing our own self discovery to understand like how we want to show up in the world and setting those boundaries. So for our listeners, I just want to remind you that the importance of relationships is going to be the key to the next part of your life and the next chapter of your life. So you want to learn how you can cultivate relationships that will be anchored in your passion and your purpose. I will be encouraging you to honor the connections that you have and take the time to reflect on your life and admire the direction in which you're heading. So thank you again. And if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure that you like and share this with someone that this can impact.